Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video, we're taking a look at the Sharpin Ultra, a digital tabletop pinball machine. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, Sharpin sent me this Ultra for a fair and honest review, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. This is a DIY tabletop pinball kit. It is digital, and you do assemble it yourself. It comes with pretty much everything you see here. So to quickly break down everything in this kit, we've got an Android box, which I'll talk about in just a minute, a CNC cut wood because this cabinet is made of wood, acrylic glass cover, arcade button encoder, arcade buttons, 2 speakers, a 22-inch FHD display, decals, side rails, all of the screws and bits you need to attach everything together, as well as all of your cables. Also included was an instruction manual which made the entire setup process a lot easier. If you've ever put together a piece of IKEA furniture, you should be right at home here. Setup didn't take too long at all and it was pretty straightforward. Now it is worth noting that when I was setting this up, the images in the instruction manual didn't 100% match the actual hardware. You can see here the holes don't match up where the image is, they are a little bit different. I would also recommend not screwing in everything tightly right away. I mounted a few pieces of hardware backwards. There are these little plastic stops and I did put them in the wrong way, so I had to unscrew them and flip them around. Additionally, you do have some liberties when assembling this. For example, the buttons here, they're all one color in the instruction manual, but you get 2 different colors in the actual product. Fortunately, wiring was pretty simple and straightforward, but I do wish the wires were a bit longer, and that way I could clean them up and make them look a little bit nicer. As it stands, it kind of looks like a spider. The included speakers are relatively inexpensive PC speakers, and there is a volume knob on them, so I do recommend turning that volume knob up. And that way when they're installed, you don't have to worry about fiddling with it, you can just change the volume on the Android box. And speaking of wiring, there are 2 diagrams here, one for Android and one for Switch. Since I am using this with the included Android box, I'm setting this up for Android. Now, one specific challenge I had when setting this up was aligning the monitor. No matter how I set this up, I couldn't get it to sit perfectly in the center. It is a little bit hard to see here, but on the right-hand side, the frame of the monitor is visible underneath the black border of that top plexi. And if I shifted it over to the right, then I'd be able to see the left-hand side of the frame. On top of that, the included monitor did have a little bit of damage right out of the box, which is unfortunate. This damage wasn't really visible during gameplay unless there was black in that specific area of the screen. And here's a quick peek at the internals once everything is all set up and ready to go. Another minor quip I had with assembly was the back panel. The back panel flips up and then screws together. This is a bit annoying. If you do have to access this back panel, you'll have to unscrew it in order to get to it. I do wish they had some sort of clamp here instead of a screw. After all is said and done, here is what the pinball machine looks like fully assembled. Now there aren't any decals on it because I may or may not have incorrectly cut them, but anyways, the matte black does suit this cabinet very well. There are 2 buttons on either side of the cabinet which can be used to navigate the menus as well as for the flippers. On the front here we have 4 separate buttons. These buttons can be used for things like up and down, the home button, as well as the plunger. Once I assembled this cabinet, I went to plug it in and ran into one issue. This is not a North American plug. I did have to buy an adapter. Fortunately, Amazon came to the rescue. I picked one of these up. I actually picked a 2-pack up for around 20 bucks, but I think you can get them for even cheaper. When I booted this up for the first time, I noticed the screen was upside down, but fortunately with Android, it's a very easy fix. From the main menu, go to Settings, go down to where it says Droid Settings, and from here, scroll down to where it says More Settings. And then from this menu, scroll down to where you see Display. And the last step is go to Screen Rotation and then select Vertical. For some reason, Reverse Vertical was selected, but switching it over to Vertical completely fixed the issue. An unfortunate part about this device is that it doesn't come with any games installed. You will have to log into your Google account, you will have to go to the Play Store, and you will have to select some games. And some of these games do have ads, some of them are paid, so it's really kind of pick your poison, see what you like. Fortunately, there is a pretty big variety of games you can choose from. It also goes without saying that you will need to connect this device to Wi-Fi in order to download these apps, unless you manually sideload them via an APK. And installing these apps is pretty much the exact same way you'd install an app on your smartphone. After installing the game and exiting the Play Store, I noticed that my screen got a little bit messed up. There's a black box here covering the bottom of the screen, and the only way to fix it was to restart the device. Admittedly, I do not like the remote at all included with this device. The remote is an IR remote, so it needs line of sight to the box in order to work correctly. If I tried using this from the front of the device, I got inconsistent button presses. Sometimes they wouldn't register, sometimes it would register as something else entirely. So I had to use the remote from the side towards the back of the device in order to register everything correctly. And this was a bit of a pain. It would have been a lot easier just to use a mouse or something like that. Now, booting up a game to test this out, and everything appeared to be working absolutely fine. I think this might vary based on game to game here, but the flippers worked, there was really no delay, and I was happy with the controls overall. It is worth noting that the control scheme might not be the same for every single game you're playing, and if you're playing a free version of a game, you might get ads. And in order to progress from some of those ads, you might need the remote. I ran into a couple of instances where I was trying to get through an ad, and none of the buttons would work. I needed to use the remote in order to skip it. The screen is nice and bright, you can adjust brightness if you want, and everything is highly configurable. So let's get into my likes, my dislikes, and whether or not I'd recommend the Sharpin Ultra, and we'll start out here with my likes. First and foremost, the screen on this one is large, it's clear, it's responsive, and it's easy to see. Yes, mine had a bit of damage, but it didn't really affect gameplay. So the screen on this one gets a big plus. The second thing I liked is they didn't necessarily cheap out too much on the Android box powering this. They could have gone with an incredibly cheap solution, but they chose the Beelink GT King. The GT King gets favorable reviews. It's no Nvidia Shield, but at the same time, it's a lot better than a lot of TV boxes out there. I mean, it's got an Amlogic 922X, it's got 4 gigs of DDR4 memory and 64 gigs of onboard storage, which you can expand if you want. The third thing I like is that it's powered by Android. It means there's quite a bit of flexibility in games you want to choose. There's more than just one or two. And the last thing I like is that this is built fairly sturdily. It did not feel like it was going to break on me. This thing is heavy and solid. Now moving into things I don't like about this device, and there are quite a few things on this list. You might agree with me here, you might not, but that is entirely up to you. The first item is the fact that this takes quite a bit of time to boot up. The Beelink GT King isn't slow, but at the same time it does take quite a bit of time to start up. If you're unplugging this and plugging it in, you will have to wait a bit before you can play. If you're keeping this powered on, it's not really an issue. And that brings me into the second point. There are no included games. You will have to manually install them. You will have to pay for them if you don't want ads. And in the free games, you might run into issues where you need that remote in order to get through the menus. And that brings me to point number 3. Depending on where you mount the TV box inside of this device, you may run into issues using the remote. The remote is IR, and it might not get the best signal from in front of the device. You may need to walk behind it and try to use it that way. The next 4 dislikes here come from a number of different people. I had a bunch of people play this, provide me their honest feedback. Some were gamers and some weren't. So for point number 4, there is no touchscreen. Some people thought it would be a lot easier to navigate menus with a touchscreen here, and also get past ads if you're playing a free game. Dislike number 5 on this is the fact that there's no vibration or gyroscope or accelerometer or anything like that. So there's no real feedback here when you're trying to play, and you can't tilt the machine if you want it. Dislike number 6 is the audio. These are relatively inexpensive PC speakers that don't provide the best sound out there, and they are pointed facing the rear. People would have preferred if they're pointed out the side or even pointed towards the front. And that brings me to dislike number 7, and this is a huge one. Every single person who I had test this out said it wasn't engaging. The poor sound, the lack of feedback from the controls led to a not necessarily enjoyable experience. Now, mind you, none of those people were mega pinball enthusiasts. Now, as to whether or not I think the Sharpin Ultra is worth it, currently it's priced at €599, which converts to roughly 625 USD. Now, at this price point, if you live in North America, you can actually pick up a stand-up pinball table from Arcade 1-Up for about the same price, even a little bit cheaper. These prices are in Canadian dollars, but in USD it's sitting at $599, so 25 bucks cheaper. And that's not just the only one. Attack from Mars is also on sale. However, if you're not in North America, I'm not quite sure what the availability of pinball machines out there is, or digital pinball machines out there is. But at this price point, at €599, I can't recommend this device. I think the Sharpin Ultra is priced a little bit too high for what you're getting in return, even if you are a pinball enthusiast. Now, even though I think the cons of this device outweigh the pros, and I don't recommend it, if you are interested at all, I will leave a link to their site in the description below. Check them out. They have other options available. Some are cheaper and some are more expensive. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Huge shoutouts to Sharpin for providing this for a fair and honest review. Let me know your thoughts about the Sharpin Ultra in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.